You ready, Andrew?
Yep.
All right. Welcome to the Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals meeting Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. This is a hybrid meeting, so if you're dialing in on a phone, use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. And we're being taped by MCTV. All the members are here, so we don't have to do a roll call. So we're going to start the meeting with 23-16 Matthew J. and Lisa Quinn. The petitioners are seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 16-foot by 30-foot 8 rear deck that will be less than 48 inches off on the property located at 216 Foster Ave, which is further identified in the assessor's maps as being on parcel L10-2406 and is located in the R3 zoning district. Name and address for the record.
I'm Dick Rockwood, and I'm here to represent the Quinns.
Thank you.
I did the architectural work for their deck. We've already been approved at conservation, and as outlined in red, that's that 16 by 30-foot deck. The reason I'm here is obviously the house is non-conforming on the sidelines, and we want to extend the deck out the same width as the house. So for that reason, I have to be at the zoning, seek zoning approval. We're staying behind the variance or whatever it is for the seawall, that 15-foot,
Mm-hmm.
I believe is what that is. There's not a measurement there, but I've discussed this all with Andrew. I think everything worked as far as between us, and as I say, we're approved for conservation. That way, like, 2 feet of clearance under the deck.
Any questions from the board? I am good. Andrew, do you have anything to add?
Nope, like I said, they've gone through all the steps of the floodplain permit, and they're just seeking zoning department approval, which is exactly what we're here for.
Okay.
It's an open deck, it's not covered.
Not covered, not just open deck.
Thanks.
Do we have anything from the audience on this? Present. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to close 2316, 216 Foster Avenue. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
So I'll make a motion that we accept 2316, 216 Foster Ave. Do we all, Andrew, can you put up the 1 to 10 up there?
I move it meets the requirements of section 305-12.02, 1 through 10.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. So I'll move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit to construct a 16-foot by 30-foot 8 rear deck that will be less than 48 inches off the ground on the property located at 216 Foster Avenue, as shown on a certificate location plan and progress set of plans submitted by the petitioner. Subject to the conditions, it will need require a building permit and a final as-built. And since the proposed use of the structure is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare, will not further create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety, will not further overload any public water, drainage, sewer, or system, not impair any of the district adjoining. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
All right, you're all set.
Might have broken a record.
Do we have 2317 Jay Dembro? The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 20-foot by 30-foot second-floor addition and a 12-foot by 20-foot deck on the property located at 288 Old Main Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel E18-03-03A, is located in the R1 zoning district. Name and address for the record,
J.
please.
Dembro, 288 Old Main Street.
Go ahead.
So with setback requirements on our side street, we are at around 4 feet, so we're putting a second floor addition over our existing kitchen, so that's currently 1 floor. The other side of the house is the second floor, so we'll be joining that into a full 2 floor. And with the setback requirements, we need to get special approval for that.
Okay. Do we have anything from the board on this? Any questions?
Well, nothing he's doing here is gonna increase any nonconformities, right?
Correct. Got 2 acres plus, he's
Yep.
just, that's a setback issue.
Yeah,
Just off of Side Street, Bow Street.
exactly, yeah.
That is a pretty tight little corner right there, huh?
It is tight, yeah, we're nestled right in there.
Do you have anything, Andrew, other than what you've given us?
Nope.
Okay. Anything else from the wood? Anything from the public on this? Seeing that there's none, I move to close 2317 J. Dembro, 288 Old Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Mark Cohen, aye.
I move that the board grant, I move the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit to construct a 20-foot by 30-foot second floor addition on a, and a 12-foot by 20-foot deck on the property located at 288 Old Main Street, as shown on site plan by Morse Engineering and renovation plan dated, do we have the dates on those, Andrew? That I can read?
The Morse plan,
12/20/2022, and submitted by the petitioners, subject to the conditions. This will require approval from the Conservation Commission, a building permit, a certified as-built site plan, and a certificate of occupancy. And, Brian, can you give the spiel on 1 to 10?
and it meets the requirements of 305-10.12, 1 through 10.
Agreed?
Agree?
Submitted by the petitioners, subject to the conditions we just said. Since the proposed use or structure is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare, will not further create undue traffic congestion and unduly impair pedestrian safety, will not further overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system, and any other municipal system. We will not create hazards affecting health, safety, and the general welfare, and will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining zones, nor to be detrimental to the health or morals of welfare. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Mark Cohen, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So now we have 2318 John Richmond. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1109 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to reestablish previously approved accessory apartment within the existing dwelling on the property located at 165 Plain Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel F080212A and is located in the R2 zoning district. Name and address for the record.
John Richmond, 165 Plain Street,
Go ahead.
Marshfield.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just looking to keep the same unit that's been there, existing. My mom's living there with me.
Mr. Murphy, this is the third time a person has got this permit or applied for this permit. The board's granted it twice before. So it expires on a change of ownership. So I think this gentleman's just trying to reestablish what everybody else has been allowed to do and have an accessory apartment. So it shouldn't be all that controversial.
Okay.
That's what everybody thinks.
I said shouldn't be.
Andrew, do you have anything on this?
There's Mr. Richmond reside
Yeah.
at this location?
Yes.
He says yes.
Okay. Permanently, is that your primary residence?
Yes.
Okay. Are you registered to vote in Marshfield?
I don't know, I moved from Middleborough, so I think that's Plymouth County. I didn't think I needed to re-register. I thought that was county.
We don't get into those details.
Okay.
He says he's living there and this is his primary residence. We accept people's representations in that regard.
Okay. Do you have any? You all set, Andrew?
Yep.
All right. Anything from the board?
Oh, yeah, you said your mom's gonna live there?
She is living there.
She is living there? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Richmond, the only other question I
Isn't
have,
she in favor of this?
She's so happy. She was living in Randolph for 40 years, and she just loves it down there. We have family in Marshfield.
Go ahead, Ann.
Mr. Richmond, it looked like there was like a deck that was built onto the whole garage, and then it was ripped down, and now there's like a patio there or something, and then like the existing deck was kind of rebuilt or redone. Doesn't seem like you guys have had any permits. I don't know if this was your ownership or the previous ownership, but
That had to be the
my
previous.
comment would be any permits you have, any work you do there, you should get building permits for. And nobody should be living in that detached garage structure out back. If they are, that they should not be living in that thing.
Okay, that place is uninhabitable. You couldn't live there. It's,
Good.
Well, this is
I just
a,
was worried because there had been a deck built on it and then a deck ripped off of it. I didn't know what the deal was there.
okay, that wasn't done by me, though. Like, the deck that was there when I purchased it.
this is an application for an accessory apartment. So, based on the application, I think the applicant's made a complete application. And I would move that, unless anyone has any, the public isn't.
Yeah, does the public have any questions on this?
Yeah, I got a question, Brian.
Go ahead, John.
John Hughes at Waterman Ave. Just in the upcoming annual meeting, town meeting, the planning department is got a article or a zoning change that accessory apartments will be permitted in any zone. They won't be coming before your board anymore.
That's good news. Thank you, John.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So I move to close.
Second?
I move that the board vote to grant petitioner's request for a special permit for an accessory residential apartment for the premises at 165 Plain Street, subject to the conditions, he doesn't need any, right?
Right, just vote on the close.
What's that?
Vote on the close.
Oh, sorry. Vote on the close.
Close.
Zach, Larry. Go
Aye.
ahead, JJ.
Robin's here.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Mark Cohen, aye.
Thank you.
So then I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for the special permit for an accessory residential apartment for the premises at 165 Plain Street, subject to no conditions that I know of, as the petitioner's request meets the condition and requirements, section 305, 1109 of the zoning bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Mark Cohen, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have 2314, Town of Marshfield. Petitioner is seeking a variance in accordance with 305-1011 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for relief from 305-602 Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations with regard to side and rear setbacks and site plan approval in accordance with 305-1202 to construct a 249 kilowatt AC voltaic system consisting of 4 carports and 1,104 panels on the property located at 35 Proprietors Drive, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel E090117A slash E09-01-128, and is located in the I-1 zoning district. Go ahead,
Mr.
Mike.
Chairman, Michael Moresco, Town Administrator. I'm here to talk about seeking a variance to get relief from the requirements for side yard and rear yard setback between the Boys and Girls Club and the small dog park pen area. This dog park is very unique in the sense that the dog park was created to provide socialization for the dogs and dog owners. Our dog park will also be creating green energy through the photovoltaics. So we're doing something unique. The photovoltaics will act as shelter for the dogs from the sun and for their owners who are there walking. So we have 4 of the structures there spread out within the maze of the dog park. And it's, it's kind of unique because I'm not aware of any other dog park that has the car ports, but the dog park also will have trees. We're doing tree planting, shrub plantings, etc. If anyone's been down there to see the dog park, we've bermed it up on both sides to be respectful of our neighbors, the Boys and Girls Club on the left side as you drive in, and there's a condo association on the right-hand side. So we berm that up. We'll have trees and stuff planted there, and then in the dog park itself, we have the photovoltaics, carports. They're basically carports that you would normally park cars, but they also provide great shelter. And one will act as the pavilion, and the others then will provide shade for the animals. And then we'll have, like I said, additional plantings and trees.
Any questions on the board?
Yeah, real quick, I think it's kind of a unique idea, but I did read a comment from one of the residents in regards to the noise level for the dogs being there with us. As you just said, it's the only one in the state that you know of that this has been done. Has there been any type of study or consulting on how that will affect any of the dogs there? Well, the
When you
noise.
say the noise, like noise
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the
like a
the
low-
carport?
Like proverbial dog whistle, something that we don't hear. Is it going to affect the dogs?
I'm not aware of anything. We haven't heard of anything. I have our consultant from NextGrid, Nathaniel Collins, is here. He's dialed in, and also Fred Russell, our facility director. We're not aware of seeing any studies where those affect the dogs.
I believe it was the electrical inspector that said the other carports that he saw emitted a high-frequency noise similar to a dog whistle.
Yeah.
So he had some concerns about
Andrew,
that.
can you speak to that, or?
That, not myself, but I mean, I can put up the electrical inspector's comments.
I can try to speak to that if, again, as Michael had noted, my name is Nathan Collins. I'm Senior Manager of Engineering for NextGrid. I apologize I couldn't be in person. As it relates to the sound levels associated with the inverters, we did, and we submitted these plans late, I apologize, but we provided detailed information on that. So those inverters have a decibel level of less than 75 at a distance of 1 meter. So it's really not much louder than that of a conversation, really, or that of a vacuum cleaner. It's listed in that kind of table. So the inverter you can see there is provided by EPC Power, and underneath that is the specification on all of its items. And you'll see within there, it talks about its sound level. So as it relates to dog parks, this would be unique. NextGrid has installed these, we have these over a horse paddock in Millis, and it's presented no issue, certainly to the horses that reside below it. And I don't want to speak for them, but I believe they enjoy the shade.
How long has that been in place?
That was installed last summer. I can show you photos of what that looks like if I'm able to share my screen, but it would be a similar condition in the sense that this dog park, Fred can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the surface material will be basically mulch within the area where the dogs will be playing. So these carports will just be directly over that mulched area.
That is correct. It is mulch.
Brian, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm not sure who to direct this question to, so whoever is the most knowledgeable, I'd ask that you answer it. Why do you need a variance?
So, our variance request is basically, as you look at the southernmost carport, and also the carport that's being used as the canopy, basically, on the front over the parking, there's the fact of, so the overhang of the carport of just under 4 feet. Now, keep in mind, that dashed line represents the limits of the overhang of the array. The circles within that footprint are where the actual footings are. And that actually exceeds the 20-foot side yard setback within this zone. So one thing we tried to do is we shifted these carports as far south of the property as possible, given the fact that the property south and the property west of this parcel are both owned by the town of Marshfield. So the north of the site where there's existing condos, we're maintaining the required setbacks associated with this zoning district.
Okay, you haven't answered my question. Why do you need the variance? Why can't you relocate these so they comply with the setback requirements? And I understand where you located them. Why can't you move them so they comply? We ask people that come in front of this board to comply with the zoning bylaw. Just because you're the town of Marshfield, I don't think you get special treatment.
Sure, I apologize. I misunderstood your question. I apologize.
Why do you need the setback variance?
So the reason why that southernmost carport is located in the location is working with the town's dog park consultant. We originally had this carport shifted further north. However, the concern was that, you know, when users of this facility come here, and they wanted to have at least one access lane where they could play toss with their dogs, essentially. So if you look, there's a gap between the canopies where users of the facility, dog owners and dogs, both in the lower area, because there's two separate areas within this dog park that are isolated based on dog size. So you have a fence that kind of goes through the middle of the property. Correct, right through there. And that's the demarcation for a small dog area and a large dog area. So we wanted to leave an opening between on each side, so dog owners and users of the facility would have opportunity to play fetch.
I don't see a hardship. I don't think you come anywhere near the standard for the granting of a variance. I know it's what you want, and I know you say it's for little dogs and big dogs living in harmony, but 48 Section 10, the Mass General Law doesn't contemplate that.
Now, this is Fred Russell from Marshfield Facility. I'd like to add something to that. The Stanton Foundation gave the town of Marshfield $250,000, and the consultant, the landscaping consultant, is abiding by their baseline regulations that there should be a clear area to play fetch.
The only way I'd see them complying is if they eliminated the lower one, right?
Yeah, I mean, they can reconfigure it. I don't care how they can reduce the size, they can reconfigure it on the lot. I don't know, they get a lot of space to stick their solar array. I don't know why they need the setback variance.
No, he was saying that the posts will actually meet the setback. It's the roof line. How far is the roof
Well,
line
it's-
considered to the setback,
They,
Brian? No, it is?
I'm just wondering, is there any, we own both parcels. Is there any way we can reconfigure the parcel to make it work so we don't need a variance?
Reconfigure the parcels?
Yeah, well, we own all of them, right?
You wouldn't need to, you wouldn't need to reconfigure the parcels.
Well, if you move that
Require
line,
them to
then it wouldn't-
relocate the structures.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
I,
if that-
I asked about that to the town planner, and he said that there was a specific A&R that was done to delineate these property lines because the lease with the Boys and Girls Club.
oh, so that's on the Boys and Girls Club side.
This is Fred Russell again from facilities. I'd like to mention that how we got to the idea of dog pots is I put a bid out for the landscaping package, and it was $60,000 for shade trees. And we figured, well, not all shade trees, but probably half of that was shade trees. So I figured that, we were successful down at the police station providing shade with using that carport, that not only we save $30,000, it actually generate money to a lease agreement, to a power purchase agreement. So it's actually a win-win. We're saving $30,000 up front. We're also annually generating a revenue with these solar panels.
I'm not against solar panels. They apparently they can generate revenue. That's a good thing. They provide shade. That can be good if you're looking for shade. I just don't see that it has to encroach. And I haven't heard anything. I mean, am I a crazy person up here? Have you guys
We just denied a variance for someone who's doing a very simple project.
on their
in
house?
their house, and kind of would be a slap in the face to them if we approved this. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Is there
I
any
mean,
way we could table this and you guys could go back and take a look at it?
Sure.
All right, why don't we do that? Everyone okay with that?
Yeah. Move to
Right.
continue.
I'm gonna make a motion that we continue 2314, Town of Marshfield, 35 Proprietors Drive. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Programs, yeah.
Nancy.
March 28th or April 11th?
March 28th.
March 28th.
Choice, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to, so I can combine these two, Bob, because they're the same address, right?
Board should move to consolidate them and treat them together, but read both public
I'll read both public,
notices.
yeah. So 2315, Town of Marshfield, in accordance with 305-1009 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, the petitioner is seeking an appeal of the building commissioner's determination that guardrails have been installed. The entrance for the Harbor Park parking area has been relocated and new entrance created without obtaining site plan approval per 305-1202 on the property located at 200 Joseph Drybeck Way, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being M070301 and is located in the residential waterfront R3 and coastal wetlands district. 2315A, Town of Marshfield. Petitioner is seeking site plan approval in accordance with 305-1202 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to install, replace guardrails to move the current parking lot entrance to the middle of the lot to allow vehicles to enter and exit more safely on the property located at 200 Joseph Drybeck Way, which is further identified assessor's maps as being on parcel M070301, located in a residential waterfront R3 coastal wetlands district.
Move to consolidate the hearings.
Second?
Larry
All in
Keane, aye.
favor?
Programs, yeah.
Brian Murphy, aye?
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Marco and I.
All right, so usually on this, we hear from Andrew first, Bob?
Yes, on the appeal. Yep.
On the appeal, Andrew, go ahead.
I received a request for enforcement, that an alteration had been made to the entrance to the parking area. I went down there, I saw that the guardrails had been installed, the new guardrails had been installed, but in the process of doing that they had changed the location of the entrance to the parking area. And it didn't have adequate access at the time. It really wasn't finished, it wasn't designed for it, and so it kind of changed the safety of navigating in and out of it, so I felt that there was a violation there. I didn't know who to write the violation to, so I asked who I should address it to, and I was told that I should address it to the select board, and so I issued it to the town of Marshfield. And here we are.
All right. Who was the request from, Andrew?
I believe Eric Murphy?
And do we have that in writing?
Yep.
Okay.
Is he in a butter?
Pretty close.
I don't know if he's a direct abutter, but he's in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right, so,
So,
go ahead.
being the town administrator, I filed the appeal. After looking at the project, this is, standard maintenance. DPW replaced the guardrail on all of Joe Drebeck Way. The entrance to that parking area was done because the guardrail was taken down, and it was much safer to have it repositioned at the time they were doing the project. That's why it was done. And it's in the layout of the roadway.
Okay. So on this plan here, Andrew, the yellow is the layout of the roadway?
Yeah, it's kind of this isn't a exactly specific one, but it's pretty close. You can see I have the 2014 site plan here, which, this was a proposed, this isn't exactly what ended up happening, but you can see how the
guardrail lines up.
Yeah, the guardrail lines up. This actually doesn't show the roadway in this one.
What about the 2021 plan we have too? Mike Seeley?
There should be another, yeah.
Right, so that's actually to scale, right?
This is the one that was approved by the Conservation Commission and was before us, but this one shows more how that 60-foot roadway goes over. That's where the guardrail is located.
So the guardrail is located on that blue line, is that correct? On the front?
Thereabouts, yeah, you can see right here.
You can see it, yep.
You can see the old guardrail comes from right there, and it's kind of goes right along that section. So this was the new proposal.
So any work done within the right-of-way is not under our purview?
I didn't feel necessarily that was the case because it altered how the parking lot was accessed. So it changes the vehicular and pedestrian safety. And that's not for necessarily just anybody to decide. I felt like that was something for the ZBA to decide. And that's why I initially ruled that way.
Okay. So, Bob, working within the right-of-way?
It's my position that the work that's being done within the right-of-way is part of ordinary maintenance. It's not subject to site plan approval.
Okay.
Work that's outside the layout of the right-of-way would be potentially subject to site plan approval.
Okay.
Andrew, if it was just the guardrail and not the entrance, would you have issued the violation?
If the guardrail had been replaced in kind in the same exact location, absolutely not.
Okay, so
it was the fact that it changed the location of the entrance. If you went to replace a guardrail along any other section of road and just kind of put a guardrail in front of a business's entrance and told them they had to enter from a new location, we would tell them they needed site plan approval or some sort of change to enter that parking lot and make sure that entrance was appropriate for it. So that it was just being consistent with those kind of guidelines.
Thank you.
Just knowing from getting permits, so the governing body that you would see for a street opening or curb cutting permit, would that be the Department of Public Works? Andrew?
For a curb cut or a driveway opening, that's correct. For site plan approval, which generally also handles entrances and access to parking lots for all sorts of non-residential properties all over town. It's the ZBA. It depends on what it is.
Do you have anything on that, Bob?
Special permit uses require a curb cut permit from the zoning board of appeals. All other uses are regulated by the Board of Public Works.
Was this a curb cut?
There was no curb. The use has to be a use that's requires a special permit in order to trigger the zoning element to a curb cut permit, and this would not trigger that requirement.
Thank you.
Really, just changing an entrance and an exit wouldn't be qualified as a curb cut?
Well,
That type of change?
I don't know, you're gonna have to get some more facts, but my understanding is there were multiple places to get into this existing parking area, and this was one of them. And I don't know what changes were made there, but I think it would be helpful if you got some information from either the Board of Public Works or the DPW staff. I frankly have never really paid all that much attention to that area, but they have, and they've been discussing these guardrail changes since last July or before. So I think if you heard from them, they could tell you what the conditions were and what the rationale was.
Do you have anything to offer, Tom?
Tom Reynolds, DPW Superintendent. We moved the guardrail in order to make the crosswalks more safer. The opening is in between the two crosswalks. The previous opening was right next to a crosswalk. So by centering the egress and access, it gives a better line of sight to both crosswalks. So it was a safety issue along with the maintenance issue.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that, I went down there, I got a phone call from an elderly resident in town, this is long-term, been here forever, and I have a little SUV, and I drove down there. It's kind of it's a big bump to get in. It's pretty much useless now for somebody in a conventional vehicle to get in and out of this location. So, I mean,
I'll be honest, they have not done any work to improve it since this whole issue came up a while ago. And I believe they absolutely would have made it a whole lot better if they had had the opportunity to do that.
I mean,
I don't necessarily think they should be criticized for following the rules.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, I'm just stating a fact. When you go down there, and you can see clearly where the old entrance and exit was. It's like a small ramp, if you will, to get in and out. It's pretty leveled and packed in. If you're telling me it's safety reasons that we're relocating it, and you know, I don't see anything sinister with that. It makes absolute sense with me to be relocating if you do this a lot more than we do. If you think it was a safety issue and that's what you're dealing with. The only concern I would have now is people accessing the crosswalks. They either have to walk through the parking lot, which is a gravel parking lot, or they're walking out in the streetway to get to a crosswalk. And there's really no sidewalk there. You're kind of right into the roadway. It's kind of tight right there, you know?
There is a sidewalk on the
opposite side, I
park.
think.
Yeah, the park side, correct.
And I never utilize it living on the other side of town, but there's quite a few people. This person I'm talking about goes down there pretty much on a regular basis, daily, goes down and enjoys it and walks. So
that's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Was there,
want a
is
lot
there
of
a
people
plan
down
to, was there a plan to grade that so you could, it was a softer ramp? Like, would you have to do like a wall to make that usable?
Right, it was a temporary ramp that was put in there once the opening was relocated. We're in conference with DEP in regards to how we're going to use that site in the future. And we do have approval to cap the current site, but there's permits that are required in order to do that. We felt that we were working within the road layout. Once we moved into the dredge spoils area, we would be required to have the permits in place before we could bring any more.
But we weren't moving the entrance and exit in anticipation of that. We were just doing it for sheer safety reasons currently, for what it's currently being used for, correct?
That is correct.
Right, the location of the two crosswalks where they enter the Harbor Park, centering this opening was just for safety purposes.
Thank you.
So, if we're assuming that the yellow lines are the 60-foot right-of-way, was all the work wholly done within the right-of-way, or is that red area what you're looking to do? Or is that what is done?
That red area is not something that I put on a map, but, you know, it is the general vicinity of where, I mean, that whole parking lot is actually dredge spoils, and there's wood chips on it right now. DEP, we talked to them about putting a gravel cap on it, in order to bring the elevation up.
So the only thing we would actually be concerned with from the zoning board would be any work from that yellow line to the end of the red line, which looks to be about 10 feet by 40 feet. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not, we're eyeballing it, but it's probably as close approximation as you're gonna get. It might be 9.5 feet, Brian, you know, but it's, to me, like, I don't know. It's minimal, the area that's within our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And there was a compelling reason for public safety from what the gentleman from the DPW was telling us. I understand Andrew's action, but,
I don't think he had all the information that we currently have, so I think he had to go with what he had. Do you have anything to add, Andrew?
Just if you overturn my determination, I feel like the rest of it's moot, you know?
Okay.
Well, I kind of think that Andrew was correct in bringing us forward. I definitely think he made the
Absolutely.
right decision in, you know, questioning what's going on there and bringing it forward. I think he's doing his job. So I'm okay with him bringing it forward. I think he was correct in filing that.
there might be some folks that want to weigh in from the
Well,
public.
yeah, I'll just wait until we're done with our.
And Mr. Chairman, just for the record, when Andrew came to me and told me he thought there was a violation, I said, if you think there's a violation, file the necessary paperwork.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what, we follow the same rules that everyone else does.
Yeah, and I just like to make it clear that a lot of times the process that the town goes through is quite complicated. So sometimes when a resident, you know, works outside of a permit or does something outside of the scope of their permit, you know, things happen. So at a later date, we'll have to, you know, everyone makes mistakes, so.
That is correct.
All right, hear from the audience. Steve, you got your hand up first. Name and address for the record.
Stephen Lynch, 50 Central Street. So, the first thing that I'd like to state is that southern crosswalk is dangerous. That shouldn't even be there. That should be completely closed down. Because I go across that bridge 5 or 6 times a day. And when you're going across that bridge, and you're my age, and all of a sudden your vision goes from like this to like this, and someone walks out from that southern crosswalk, and you're coming over that bridge, which is really narrow, and somebody else is coming at you, you're really, all of a sudden, not focusing down the road like you usually do when you drive, you're focusing on that car coming at you. And so many times I've missed people that have come out into that crosswalk. That should be completely shut down. The other crosswalk, you know, I don't even know why it's there. I don't understand why this board or anybody else in this room or Andrew keeps calling this a parking lot. Where in the records has the ZBA designated this as a parking lot? Where did it get its permitting? This is a dredge spoil area. It never has been a parking lot. This was built after zoning came into effect in Marshfield, and this has never been zoned as a parking lot. So to keep calling it a parking lot as a curb cut to a parking lot, it's just totally illegitimate. It's clear cut. It is not a parking lot. Never has been. You know, people might park in there, you go to Harbor Park, and for the Lobster Fest, it should be at the Marshfield Fair, not making money off taxpayers' property, renting it out to vendors. But in any case, it's not a parking lot, and has never been deemed legally as a parking lot.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address for the record.
Pam Keith, 73 Standish Street. I hope you all got my letter. I'm
We
not
did.
gonna read the whole thing. I want to double down. This is in an unlawful parking lot area, It's been recognized by the town several times over that it's not lawful. And my closing statement where I talk about confusion and I kind of insinuate wrongdoing and all that, some of it comes about not in an intentional way, whatever. Putting the guardrail up the way it was done without a site plan or any type of approval was done intentionally. Then it confuses everyone because now we're talking about just the guardrail, but you're not talking about the fill. They're two different things. Mr. Reynolds did not answer the question about, well, do you need to do more work or whatever? He started talking about there's already wood chips in there and everything. That's 30 cubic yards of fill, and it is straying, it is not in the roadway, and you're filling the coastal wetland zone, and you're filling in, you're creating more of an unlawful use by adding fill. And you're not gonna even discuss tonight the filling portion, it sounds like. It sounds like you're already just into the guardrail and safety, but you don't wanna discuss the fill.
Well, we're looking to discuss the 40 by 40 area, which is the disturbed fill area, which you're discussing. What portion of that do we have control of? That is the question.
Right, and you don't even know though too, whether that's really all the fill that's gonna quite happen. Is it really gonna stay in that little red space like that? I mean, what happens if you need a little more, right?
Well, that's what we're here to discuss tonight. If you saw, they have both site plan approval and the appeal in front of us.
I need to back up. My very first question was, and I asked Nancy this, and I didn't get an answer, and it probably wasn't her place to answer. You've got this plan up. It doesn't even say site plan on it. You did throw up the big one, the 2-acre site plan, which was always called the site plan.
Right, so from my understanding, Rod Procaccino, the town engineer, did this one. The other one is the one that we have that was submitted.
But I want to ask, I would hope that you will make the statement right out very clearly. If you do move forward with some type of site plan approval, I don't know if you're going to waive it, approve it, deny it, whatever you're going to do. If you're going to approve a site plan tonight, can you make the statement that this exact plan that's on the board is truly what you're approving? Because I would hope no one's playing a giant switcheroo, and you're somehow approving that 2-acre.
I can tell you, Pam, what we're dealing with is the guardrail change, that 40 by 40 disturbed area, and if anything, we'll be discussing that 9, 10 foot by 40 foot area, if it was filled, if it was feathered, how it was done, and that's what's in front of us tonight.
When you vote to approve a site plan, and this is the site plan.
That will be the only section we're approving, if we discuss to approve,
I
to be
just wanted to
approved.
make sure.
And
So-
That's
That
all
red-
we're talking about tonight,
That red area is for basically the ramp going into the parking lot, correct?
as far as what we understand.
And to be clear, Ms. Keith, the area between the yellow lines is outside of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, I can barely see it from here, but.
If you walk up here, you can
wanna walk
see
up
it
and
more
look at it?
clearly,
Is it?
just so we're all on the same page.
That's the 60-foot right-of-way. It's, normally they're 40, this one's 60.
Yeah, so I see, okay, yeah, I see there's.
So that's out of our
And
purview.
like I said, though, I really, I know we can't say it now, and no one can really answer it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little more to it than that, to make, a nice gradual slope and a wide enough slope and all of that. I would think there's possibly more fill coming in. I mean, the old plan said there was not gonna be any fill, and of course there was. So, but even if it's just 6 inches outside, it's still filling the coastal wetland zone, and I think it needs to be addressed. It's not a lawful, it's prohibited. The road and the bridge were built by variance, which I think you and I have even talked about a year or so ago. It's a prohibited activity, and you can't, I don't think, can really consider any of filling the coastal wetlands de minimis, especially when you are facilitating the ongoing continued use of an unlawful use. And Mr. Galvin even spoke of, if it needs a special permit, it's under whatever's purview. Well, it doesn't need a special permit. You know why? Because it's illegal. It's not allowed by right, and it's not allowed by special permit. So it doesn't really need a site plan, because apparently that's when you do a site plan. This is an unlawful, illegal use, and the guardrail never should have been moved, especially first, before a hearing where people could have said that. okay? And so that's where we create all kinds of chaos and confusion.
Well, again, the guardrail's within the right-of-way, so the road layout, we do not control.
But see, this is where it gets confusing. It's so simple, it's two little things, we're talking about a little opening, a guardrail and some fill. But now, what's problem is once you open the guardrail, we've already said it, you can't get in and out of the parking lot. So the two now go together. One may be legal, technically, but the other half of the equation is illegal.
Well, so what we're looking at is,
So it
if
never should've been
if
done.
that's 30 feet, say the overall number is 40 feet, and they've feathered from the roadway down to the bottom of the 40 feet, if this is accurate and correct, if they push everything back over the yellow line and stay within the roadway, we don't have any problem at all. But
Well,
if they go over that, then that's when it comes into site plan approval.
Well, again, the road was built by variance, and usually in the courts, when something's built by variance, it always needs a variance.
Well, the 60-foot right-of-way is the 60-foot right-of-way.
Well, anyway, usually, again, when you make changes to something that was done with a variance, you usually still need a variance, so as far as I understand it. But, so I just want to say, both Mr. Galvin and Mr. Stewart have given the board the excuse that, oh, we can't get any work done if we take literally the coastal wetland zone. But the bylaw, the town's had 50 years to change this bylaw, and nobody's done it. And if you want to change, you go through the planning board and you go through town meeting. You don't do it in the zoning meetings, just giving out variances willy-nilly or doing whatever you do to create confusion. There should be almost separation here, and it's not gonna happen. And so, it should be enforced literally. That's how the courts enforce things. They read it in black and white. It says no filling, there's no filling allowed. And this filling was not discussed in a conservation meeting on top of it, that 2929 permit. This was not the way that was discussed. They were gonna regrade old dredge spoils, and there wasn't supposed to be any fill. So that's another small part of the equation. So the only thing I have to say is that Mr. Galvin and Mr. Stewart both said, oh no, we can't do any work if we obey the coastal wetland zone, but this is work that's not supposed to be done. This is not a parking lot. It is a place where people get away with parking cars, but it is not lawful, so you're not supposed to do any work here. So that's the point of my comments.
Thank you. Dave?
Brian, you have a couple of people online.
I can
just
see
wanna
them, they
make
have
a
their
comment.
hands up.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I didn't phrase it like that. I actually asked a question. I said I don't know if this needs a variance or not, because literal interpretation would prohibit a lot of the normal stuff that happens in here. It wasn't that I was promoting willy-nilly use of the area. But you've got Nanette here, who's been waiting patiently, speaking online.
Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, everyone.
Dave
This is
Carrier.
Do
Nanette.
you have Dave?
I'll be very brief. Dave Carrier, 34 Outlook Road, Chair of the Board of Public Works. The one comment I want to make is that it is not unusual to do modifications to guardrail within the layout of the roadway as a superintendent under his own authority. I can speak to doing the same thing on South River Street. Back when I was superintendent, we had an abutter who objected to it, parked his car in the area where we were going to relocate the guardrail. We had his car towed out of the way, and we was to install the guardrail in that location, and he had no recourse to us because it was within the layout roadway, and he wanted to try some. But Tom was exercising the authority that is his as superintendent. The other point I want to make out is, Andrew has spoken that there was an item of safety, and I guess I have this question. Was there a consultation with the traffic safety officer on this subject before Andrew took his action?
Andrew?
What, by me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Was there one by you, Tom?
No, there isn't a traffic safety officer currently.
Okay, so we didn't reach out to...
No, I had conversation back in the spring with Officer Filer.
Okay.
Back in the spring, but when we installed the guardrail, there was no conversation with any other safety officer.
Tom, looking at this, looking at
That's
the,
not really within my purview. That's why I wanted to put it to the ZBA. The ZBA would usually make the decision should we get something from the police department to comment on the vehicular safety and the access, or, you know, those are usually the questions that the ZBA asks, which is why I did what I did.
So Tom, can I ask you something? Is there enough percent of grade within that 40 by 40 section to move it wholly within the right-of-way? So if you were to take this project at whatever, if what we're looking at is accurate, is there any way to move the percent of grade to stay within the right-of-way and still make an access to this area?
You could feather it out a little bit further wider rather than deeper.
Okay.
I mean, if we encroach on the,
Well, I'm just saying,
the
if
dredge spoils area, then we'll remove what.
that's what I'm asking. Is there a way that this could be done without touching the dredge spoils area? Or if you were to use the dredge spoils area, is it allowable to move the material around in the current area to feather the bottom of that?
DEP actually has given us the authority to cap that site with reclaimed asphalt, gravel, crushed stone. So we're working with DEP currently to have that site, you know, use a capping. They've suggested putting down like a silt snow fence and then covering it with gravel. All right, so that when that gravel wears down, the snow fence is exposed and you know it's time to put more gravel as a cap on top of the dredge units.
Okay.
But we need to go through the process with DEP, and once that's in place, then we can file for whatever permits are required at that time.
Okay. All right, Nanette, go ahead. You've been waiting patiently.
Thank you. Nanette Parziale, 72 Island Street. I just had a simple question about the guardrail at the second crosswalk. With no opening, how would somebody with a wheelchair or a stroller or whatnot access that crosswalk from this, whatever we're calling this piece of property? Is there any intention of opening up that guardrail at that second crosswalk?
They're both open now.
Tom says they're both
Are
open.
they both open?
Yeah. Well, that's what Tom.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
John, go ahead.
Mary Murphy is waiting next.
Oh, Mary, go ahead.
All right, cool. So, first of all, I think with respect to the maintenance item, Bob, that you were talking about, and this is okay based upon maintenance, I feel as though that the residents actually brought this forward. Like, this might have been on the DPW's list to update, but it wasn't. And then neighbors kind of went forth in the past, like, year and a half, asking that the town replace them, and I think it then became higher on the priority. I think another request that came out of some of those meetings was, you know, how much weight can that bridge hold? And putting up signs, labeling that. I don't necessarily know if that's done, but so that was number one that I kind of was questioning. Number two, I just actually walked that area a lot. Actually, I love it. It's pretty awesome. And I wanted to also figure out like how steep that was to kind of go down in that divot, if you will, and then back up. And when I was crossing with my dog, and my dog's kind of large. I have a large black lab. And when I was crossing with the crosswalk, not where typically you'd cross with the crosswalk where you used to have the opening, but the other crosswalk. And one of the things that I noticed, and maybe this is like the season, you know, because it's the winter, maybe people are kind of going a little bit faster down there, but like there were people zinging by and I really couldn't see the car. And I don't know if it's because of my height or whatever, but I did notice that there was like an old telephone pole in a large bush. So if we're relying on people to kind of cross on that crosswalk now, if we put in a ramp, I think that might be, I think you might want to have somebody go down, like a safety officer, and look at it, just to make certain that like nobody gets hit, because I feel as though that would be a tragedy, and this area is just, you know, so awesome. A couple of other things that I want to point out is, you know, I too have also been in contact with the DEP, Wasteland, as well as Waterways. And I know that they've switched their opinion based upon safety related to 2004 and now the recent testing that happened. No one in the DEP will give me an answer in writing as to why their opinion has changed from the toxicity level and the labeling of contaminated materials to now the recent materials being okay. But again, they're telling me that it's okay. I do like to hear that people are actually thinking about having to cap this because this is a site and this is a dump. And I know a year ago when I was talking to Mike Moresco, his assumption was he could just dump continuously and it wouldn't matter. And then lastly, I think I want to end this on is, you know, I think it's really good that the town is talking with the DEP and they're thinking out like, what are we going to do with this once we cap it? Because it is a dump and there's going to be, you know, what is the purpose? What's the next purpose? So I think that is good, but what I worry, and I think the zoning board needs to think about too, is why aren't the residents in Brant Rock included in these conversations? Why do we have to come to zoning meetings to hear about it? You know, I had requested this morning just to find out if I could get the meeting minutes when Mike Moresco and the DPW and others met with the DEP and they had these conversations. And I think Scott Dixon, the current president of the original Brant Rock Village Association, and Diane Jordan of the Brant Rock Village Association, LLC, I think that everyone would agree, like, we all want to be a part of the conversation. Like, why aren't we all working together? And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
John, go ahead. John Cusick? It's muted.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Name and address for the record.
John Cusick, Waterman Ave. Just to clarify a couple of things that mentioned by the superintendent. So far, as a board member, I have no information on any potential capping of this dirt lot. Never been mentioned under the superintendent's report, just to let you know. I have no information relative to any work that's being proposed. I also like to point out that the drawing that Rod provided is not to scale. So if any work is done down there, we should have it surveyed so we know exactly where the road is. So we bring you back to February when this opening started. That first Monday over the weekend, I saw it. So I talked to Jimmy Kent 3 times, all about this new opening. And this is how it happened. He told me 3 times now, I've asked him. Patrick Brennan of Armory Engineering marked out the new vehicle opening, and the foreman of Premier Fence installed the guardrails as directed by Patrick Brennan and Mike DeMeo. Jim Kent also told me that Pat Brennan and Mike DeMeo, after he was directed to lay out the 30 feet, they really double checked it to make sure it was 30 feet. So I would like to point out also that the board, we never discussed any new vehicle opening on Drywick Way. The board did discuss the contract for the guardrails. That contract, I provided 1 copy, I have it right here, it's back to July 29, 22, and it was for a total of $96,026. There's nothing in this contract that has anything to do with moving any of the guardrails. So this is how I look at it. To think that an engineer from Armory Engineering, Patrick Brennan, along with the harbor master, can direct our employees to hijack the signed Board of Public Works contract. And they changed it. They changed the contract. There's nothing in there that has any type of openings. It was just to replace the guardrails just the way they were. So no new vehicle opening was ever discussed. We only discussed the contract for $96,026. And I don't know what we're doing here by allowing Patrick Brennan and Mike DeMeo. They have no authority to direct our employees. They have no authority to literally hijack our signed contract with Premier Fencing. I don't see how we can even be talking about this. Because you have Patrick Brennan and Mike DeMeo in the background. I just don't see how two individuals can come over and start making marks and you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, and close this one up. It was never discussed at the Board of Public Works. We only discussed the contract. So I respectfully ask that you deny the appeal of Mr. Maresco and affirm the decision of the building commissioner. Because this is all, in my book, illegal, because it was directed by Mr. Brennan and Mr. DeMeo. So I'd also like to say that Mr. Galvin, in one of his memos, talked about, I'll read it to you. He said, he's talking to you guys at the board, he says, read literally. You cannot resurface any roadway, install new utilities, or engage in any activities, including digging up a site to repair or replace anything. That's a false statement. In the coastal wetland district, you can have certain municipal uses are allowed. Permitted uses include wastewater treatment facilities, waterworks, pumping stations, maritime facilities, central services, and parks. So he says you can't do the roadways. In the town council's memo, and he writes this, in general, towns do not regulate activities occurring within public ways by zoning bylaws. So you can resurface. So it's double speak. And I respectfully request that the board deny the petitioner's request for site plan approval. We shouldn't even be here talking about this. The Board of Public Works had nothing to do with this. The last thing I'll tell you, I got an email from Mr. Reynolds that any information that I want from the employees, I have to go through him. Now he's telling the individuals that hired him what I have to do. So leave it alone, go back to square one, open up the other end, close this end up. Let's do it right, because what we're doing is the town is doing the work first and then begging forgiveness. And it's done over and over and over again with the town. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Eric.
Hey, doing Eric Murphy, Ocean Street, as the applicant. I feel like I should have a little say in the speech as far as Mr. Maresco goes. So a little history on this. I drive by here all the time. It's kind of my route. Probably a year ago, 9 months ago, Mr. DeMeo came in front of this board with a plan to do just what he's done now, change the guardrail, add some parking.
So, Mr. DeMeo, you're saying he changed the guardrail?
No.
He installed it?
I'm saying he came in front of you with a plan about a year ago to do a bunch of work. It was a construction plan.
So you think that the work that was done with the guardrail was Mr. DeMeo?
No, I'm saying about a year ago, Mr. DeMeo came with a plan in front of the ZBA for ZBA approval. Okay?
Okay.
All of the residents came, we all spoke. It was postponed for 3 weeks. He came back, we all spoke again. It was postponed 3 weeks later. Mr. DeMeo decided not to show up. He pulled his article, decided not to do the work. We all thought that was done. So as I'm driving by here, I see them putting the new guardrail in, and as I drive by the opening, 9 o'clock in the morning, I see Mr. DeMeo's truck and Jimmy, the superintendent.
Jimmy Ken.
Jimmy Ken, parked and directing where to put the guardrail in, from moving it from one spot to the other. In that space, there was 2 large blocks of bluestone and a curb cut down. You would have to 4-wheel drive off over the edge of it. So as I looked at it, I said, I wonder what they're gonna do with that curb. Come back about 2 hours later, the granite blocks are gone, and there's now dirt added, a big pile of dirt added there. Even the simple plans that they have from conservation says no dirt shall be added. So to remove those granite blocks and add the dirt is in a violation in itself.
You have to understand, Eric, the work in the right-of-way, we don't control that.
I understand, I'm getting to that point. This is not the scale, okay? If someone brought plans.
Are you saying the guardrail is not in the right-of-way?
I'm saying the guardrail may be on the edge of the guardrail. This is not on the edge of the right-of-way. This is not.
But the
this is
plan
not
prior to
scale.
this actually shows a land surveyed plan with a certified land surveyor stating that it's to scale, and it shows the guardrail in the right-of-way.
But the dirt added is not. The dirt, the red.
But what I'm saying is, you're talking about the guardrail.
The guardrail was moved, okay? The plans that were purposely pulled for the guardrail were pulled from ZBA, okay? They pulled those plans. They never came back. Now, the guardrail is just done, and and Mr. Moresco is coming to ask for permission. Just because you changed the last name from DeMayo to Moresco doesn't mean they should be able to come and ask for permission after doing the project.
But have you listened to what they said, that the guardrail is in the right-of-way? Have you heard that, or
The guardrail is in the right of way.
the road
On
layout?
this to not scale.
So
back.
so go to the next plan, Andrew, that is to scale. So do you understand that's a certified land surveyor's plan that is to scale? Now, would you focus on the guardrail, Andrew, so we can all see it? Do you see the guardrail is laid out and then lines up with that blue line? And then, Andrew, would you clearly point to the 60-foot right-of-way, the right and the left side of it? So now do you see that the guardrail is in the right-of-way? That is a surveyed plan by a certified land surveyor.
But the bluestone was in the right of way as well, correct? So you move the bluestone? I'm just saying, I mean, if I put a driveway in my yard, anywhere I want, there's no curb cut, there's no curb in my yard, I can park anywhere I want, just put a driveway in, what you're saying?
What we're saying is that
Because there's no
the
curb cut.
authority that gives the curb cut is the Department of Public Works, not us.
And the board is telling you that they didn't know anything about it, that there was, and I'm telling you visually that when I drove by, there was someone else there. And, you know, I would like to quote your partner next door, I don't know his name, but, you know, with the glasses from 6:55 tonight. He said, just because you're the town of Marshfield doesn't give you the special privileges in this meeting, not an hour ago, so.
We understand that,
just
but
because
we
you're the town of
don't control the
Marshfield doesn't allow
right,
you to
you have to
act.
understand that that line, and then past the line, is the lot where you now come into our
But there's 40
purview.
But there's 40 feet of dirt there. The dirt is the problem. Dirt added is the problem. They never asked for permission to move anything. They asked for permission, and then when they were gonna get denied, they pulled it. And then just went and did it. And now they're coming back to ask you for forgiveness because they didn't go through the actual paperwork for it.
They're seeing if what they did is under our purview. And it looks like, if it's accurate, it's 9 or 10 feet by 40 feet that is under our purview. And that's the question, is if they put that back, stay within the road layout, it doesn't become our problem. It's someone else's.
Doesn't have to be ADA compliant, doesn't have to be.
As I said, within the road layout, it's someone else's problem. It's not the zoning board of appeals problem.
The ZBA has no jurisdiction.
Go ahead, Tom.
Outside those yellow lines, we have jurisdiction. Within those yellow lines, we do not have jurisdiction. I think it's a pretty straightforward equation that we're talking about. It's whatever the area is in red outside those yellow lines. That's what's in front of us. So, DeMayo, Mr. Moresco, I don't care about plans from 2010, 2020, or earlier in 21. None of that is in front of the board. What's in front of the board tonight is the area in red outside those yellow lines. That's what's in front of us, and that's what we're here to decide.
Tom?
I just want to correct one of the previous speakers. In July, we received money from the state, winter road recovery money. And that's when the idea of replacing the guardrail came into play, when we received that money. The Board of Public Works was notified of the money we received and what we were going to do with it. We were going to replace the guardrail on Joseph Travick Way. All right, 3 different meetings, it was discussed in my superintendent's report that the guardrail would be going up, and it was delayed on 3 different occasions. So at that point, the guardrail finally went up in February, and at no point does anyone other than myself give the assistant superintendent, Mr. Kent, orders. I'm the only one that gives him his work orders. No one else outside of me will do that.
Okay.
And I'll swear to that.
Thank you.
I want to correct another statement from Mr. Cusick, which is, as this chairman, okay, I can speak to the fact that I operate under the same criteria that John was just complaining about. I do not seek any information from staff unless I notify Tom first, unless except in his absence, or if it's on something we've already agreed to on a continuing basis. And I had the same stricture on my board when I was superintendent that I wanted them going through me. Because if I have staff assigned to do something and they are redirecting staff, that interferes with what the charter has established, which is we appoint the superintendent, and the superintendent runs the department.
Joe, go ahead. You've been waiting patiently.
Well, Pam's had her hand up much longer than me.
I don't know your name, but
Pam Christus, 60 Central Street. I think what it boils down to is us residents are just really, concerned about things that are going on in our little area. I drive through here multiple times a day, and for them to justify changing the guardrail just saying, oh, we felt it was a safety issue. Based on what? He never goes down there, and so they just say, oh, we changed it because we felt it was a safety issue. That isn't enough. We're down there all day, every day, and I think you need more than just that excuse as to relocating everything. And, I'll drive home and see all the phragmites are cut. Whoa, where'd that come from? And we have coyotes running through our yards. So we're the ones that are impacted on decisions from people who just don't go down there. And it's a small community. I lived at the other end of town for 22 years. It's much more spaced out. It's a completely different world up in North Marshfield. Down here, we're all on top of each other, so we need to be considerate. DeMayo says we need more parking. Well, if you had somebody line up the boats and trailers and park in right spots rather than wasting spots because they're over the line, you don't need more parking. Just have an attendant guide them in so that you can use each and every spot. We see this all day. Most people don't. You don't need more parking. You just need somebody to get everybody in their own spot rather than going over the way. So things like that, it's concerning because we don't trust, because so often things go down that we're unaware of. We're fighting things, and we have to take time out of our days to show up in our nights to find out what they're planning, because it impacts us in a huge way because we are such a small community down there. And it's concerning and it's upsetting. So
I understand, but you have to understand tonight, this is what's in front of us. This is all we have control of.
But they moved the opening because it was a safety issue, and there's no safety officer that went down there to determine that. It was
But
just
again,
a call.
within the right-of-way is what they do. We only control what's out of the right-of-way when you get into the lot.
But they said they changed the opening because they felt it was a safety issue.
Right, but that's a DPW issue. It's not a ZBA issue.
It shouldn't have been done. I saw Mike DeMayo down there pointing. Yep. I saw him down there. He was pointing and showing them. I thought, why is he here? Why is he always everywhere but the water? I don't understand it. So he's involved in too many things that don't make sense to me, and I'm a little concerned about that.
Thank you. Joe, go ahead.
First of all, I don't
Name and
know.
address for the record.
Joe Pasevich, 25 Wilson Road. maybe I missed it, but was the violation notice put up on the screen? I'm not
Andrew, did you
sure.
put the violation notice up on the screen?
And in the meantime, while he's doing that, I'd like to say that if there's any talk about filling and, there we go. Okay. Okay, so he's talking about in there, not just about guardrails. He's talking about relocations. Okay? To me, if that lot was someplace on Plain Street or Main Street or Ocean Street or any place else, and somebody said, I want to do something on this lot and I want access to the road, how would that not be, how would not the egress or the access not be part of a site plan? It would have to be.
So Bob said that within the right-of-way, a special permit triggers what you're asking for. If the special permit does not trigger that, then you stay with the DPW.
But did not the roadway itself require a permit from the ZBA? It did. So now, anybody building having any kind of activity, look at the arguments over the lot down there across from McDonald's, the Roderick lot, and how they got into such a rigmarole over where the curb cuts were gonna be and where the entrance is and the exit was.
It's because there is no curb cut there.
To me, well, is there a curb cut here?
I don't
You
believe
just
there
created
isn't.
a new one. You
There isn't.
created a new one.
There isn't a curb cut.
Well, why isn't it?
There's no curb to cut.
Oh, you mean there's like no piece of granite?
Yeah.
Well, I think a curb cut means more than just the physical piece of granite.
But again, the curb cut, if it doesn't fall under a special permit, is under the DPW. It's not under the ZBA.
It's in addition to the DPW. It's not this one, this or the other. The DPW cut is required in addition to any change of access or egress. Any lot where you were gonna decide to open a business or build a house or anything like that would be part of the site plan. It would be you'd be negligent if you didn't say to a developer, oh, by the way, how are you gonna get in and out of this lot? That has to be part of the plan. Now,
Right, it comes with the permit.
as part of the site plan, which is included. So now, the other thing is about the so-called, you're looking for a way to wiggle out of requiring any addressing of the filling material on the wetlands district, coastal wetlands district, by saying, can we slope it down to be within the yellow lines, within the roadway, the road right of way. Already, even with the dirt going beyond that yellow line, if you go down there and look at it, it can't be used. It's already too steep now. So it's so plainly obvious that the filling that's gonna have to be done is gonna be much more extensive. I think one of your board members said they went down there and said. even
I've
with
been
an
down there and
with
tried
an
to get out
SUV,
myself.
It's tricky. Never mind a regular sedan. So now you know that that is not an option, but you keep pushing it. We're gonna reduce the fill, we're gonna feather it out, we're gonna do this, we're gonna pack it down. No, it can't be used. You're gonna ground out. So you already know that it's Andrew Stewart's violation notice is absolutely correct, because we already know that this is gonna require a lot more filling, which is gonna require a site plan approval.
So Joe, if he was to use the fill from within the dredge spoils area, and then use reclamation to get to the yellow line, then use the fill from inside the dredge spoil area, is that filling?
If you're digging up fill from one part of a lot and then dumping
On the
it on
same
another
lot.
part of the lot.
On the same lot.
Like 100 feet away or 200 feet away, of course that's illegal. Of course, because number one, you're excavating in a coastal zone, which is not allowed, and you're then filling in a coastal zone, which is not allowed. So you've got a double violation going on if you take that approach.
If you grade that area with a bulldozer or whatever he's allowed to do it,
It smells bad.
So anyway, again, it's so obvious that more grading is gonna be allowed. It's so obvious that goodness gracious, what would we do in this town if people started developing lots and came here with a site plan, and then you would look at the site plan and you'd see no access way to the street? What would you do? Say, oh, well, you think the applicant's gonna say, sorry, guys, you can't tell me where to put my driveway, because it's gonna be somewhere within the right of way, so, you know.
Well, that falls under the building permit, when you get the building permit. That falls under our special permit, when you get a special permit. If that doesn't cover it, anything beyond that goes to the Department of Public Works. It's just that no one seems to want to understand that.
It's
Not in
DPW
addition.
and site plan that's required. So, again, we already know
If he
it's.
comes beyond the yellow line, site plan is triggered.
All right.
If he stays within the yellow line, it's not
But
triggered.
it's plainly obvious it's not even possible to do that. It's plainly obvious by your own observations and by the observations of myself and anybody else that's been down there, that the massive filling is gonna be required, which is gonna trigger the need, well, first of all, it's illegal. And the DPW and the DEP and the Conservation Commission nobody can tell you it's okay to fill something or cap something, because they also have to obey zoning laws. It's on the conservation permits. It always says, here's your conservation order of conditions, but remember, you have to obey zoning law. The DEP does the same thing. Remember, you have to obey zoning law, okay? So no, DEP and the Conservation Commission cannot say, oh, go ahead and fill. And you cannot take your definition of excavating illegal and redepositing illegal as a way to get around the fact that this is an illegal operation by building that ramp. And it's plainly obvious that building a ramp and creating an egress and access way is absolutely, requires a site plan. So I think the violation notice, which you had up on the screen, and Mr. Stewart covered all the bases, any number of which should apply and should result in the violation being enforced. And if you think that you're just creating your own rules and it's gonna be a Wild West town, lawless, where anybody can just say where they're gonna access a roadway, go ahead, make that proclamation that anybody who wants to develop a lot can now just put their access way wherever they want. And
That's
not
your
have to tell you
interpretation,
guys.
Joe, that's not ours.
Pardon?
That's your interpretation, not ours.
I think that's the interpretation of everybody that's here tonight that sees a problem with this. And let's, you know, I will agree, you do have your own interpretations often, but they don't comport to what the residents want and what the zoning regulations actually say.
Thank you.
Can I just say one sentence?
Go ahead, Pam.
I never got to check, I see Mr. Galvin's rationale about the roadway, and he did cite a couple of cases. I didn't get to double check. He very well could be 100%, 180% correct. But I will tell you this, he often gives incorrect advice or leaves things out. You are going full 180% with, if it's in the roadway, it doesn't matter, and we're gonna push the stuff out of the.
That's exactly what you sound like, Brian.
Into the roadway. Well, seriously, you are going and going and going with this in the roadway stuff. I mean, I think Joe just said it. The road itself got a permit, got a special permit and a variance. It was a large decision. It was a big talk in 1984. The road needed a permit. Now, suddenly, we don't need a permit, and you're trying to push it out of your jurisdiction. And I don't buy it. I don't necessarily buy the roadway thing. I don't know if it's accurate, is what I'm saying. And you know what I think? You don't know if it's accurate. You've been told it's accurate, but there's no way you know, because you don't read cases and laws, and no one on this board, or if somebody's a
Well, we
lawyer-
have Bob that does.
Yeah, but he likes to cherry pick or twist, and it's not an insult. That's what lawyers do for their side of the argument. And I'm just saying, I think any board member who has not read the law themselves does not know if that whole roadway thing is even accurate, and that's all I just want to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Fine, yeah. You have a couple of people online.
Okay. Who do we have?
Anastasia?
Hi, this is Anastasia Powers at 346 Elm Street. So in this drawing, that it shows that it's going in 40 feet, but on the other drawing that you showed, and it looks like about, 10 feet over the yellow line. But if you go to this other drawing, can you just show where the yellow line would be on this one?
Well, the yellow line is the yellow line is the black line.
Right, so that opening right there.
Wait a minute, someone else is talking. All right, go ahead.
And so that opening where it says relocate entrance to center of lot, that's 30 feet, correct? Because that was what was on the other drawing?
We're assuming it's 30 feet.
Okay, and so if that's 30 feet, then that black line seems very close to that.
Right, so that blue line, if you look at the blue line, Andrew, could
Yeah.
you point out the blue line? That is where the guardrail is. Then those spaces are 20 feet deep.
Right, so again, on the other drawing, it looked like it's going in 40 feet. So, and if you're saying that's 20 feet, again, I'm just saying that that picture.
You're right, it
doesn't
could be,
look the
it
scale.
could be up to 20, it could be
So
20 by 40.
So if the plan is then to pull it back, right, all of that grading, we're saying it's gonna pull back to that black line,
Right.
that would kind of be within, I guess, we're saying that would be okay because it's within that allowed.
Road
area.
layout, it's in the road layout.
And so then, is there a requirement for any sort of grading between the street and where it needs to go? I know it was moved.
There's a
for the
percent of
safety.
grade that they have to meet.
And I guess when they do that, do we know what that percent of grade is compared to the percent of grade from the original opening?
We don't know that because the only plan we have is that plan that shows that red 40 by 40 area on it, this one.
But, I mean, it would seem like they should come back with the additional details if they wanted to get any sort of approval.
Well, what we're determining tonight is what part of this is under our purview and what we can do to address it.
Ron, can I say
Right,
something?
so it should be 20 feet in.
Real quick, Brian, if you look at the exit, what was existing before they changed it, I mean, you can kind of see there where the ramp is, how far it goes into the lot. I mean, I think it's pretty clear and obvious. It's gonna go over
From the
yellow
red-
line, from that grading and.
From Rod Procaccino's drawing, that 40 by 40 area is in.
But I mean, do you see the ramp where it used to be, where it
can
was
see it, yeah.
existing? I mean, you can pretty much see where the ramp is. I mean, so I think it is gonna go into this lot. Now, real quick,
that's
with the
what
board
we're here
member,
for tonight.
you
They should
said
move it back to where it was originally. if they
during
have to
all
go
these
back.
discussions you had, did anyone ever, during those meetings when replacing the guardrail, was relocating the entrance ever discussed?
When,
You had the meetings, you said you had the meetings on replacing the guardrail, you got money to replace the guardrails, it was a necessity thing, so it was gonna be done. And you had meetings and people talked about it and whatnot. Had you ever said, okay, during those meetings, we are gonna relocate
we
the
told them
entrance?
from the very beginning that we were relocating the entranceway.
That was openly discussed in those meetings? Okay.
Just to follow up on what they had, what superintendent was saying.
Eric, please.
The planning board actually had applied for the blinking crosswalks, but they didn't get the grant. They applied for the two because of the moving of the guardrail a year ago. They just didn't get the grant. They hope to then reapply and get the blinking lights that we have on South River and other streets.
Okay.
Thanks, Diane Jordan, Bancroft Street. So I just want to start by reading.
Please do me a favor, you're gonna stay within the scope of tonight, right?
I'm going to try.
Okay.
So the planning staff does not, wait a minute, where is it? Okay. There was a notice from the planning board today.
There were two memos from the planning
Right,
board.
they recommend that you uphold Andrew's violation.
Did you read the second memo?
No, I guess I didn't.
Andrew, do you have the second memo?
That that
From
he
the
should have
planning
had a
board.
site plan.
You had it, Andrew.
Yep, I'm just bringing up the first one too.
So they're recommending that you uphold the violation and that site plan approval should be, that they should have had site plan approval?
For work required for work performed outside the road layout only.
Yeah, so you can tell from the pictures that, I don't know if my stuff can go up on the screen that I sent in.
If Andrew doesn't have it, it can't, but I think,
I
Andrew, do you have his stuff? Yeah, it's right there.
So, Right, so, okay, so I'm speaking obviously in support of the violation request for enforcement, okay? So, you know, we wanted to bring your attention to, and I know you're, you know, had a lot of nice statements at the beginning that you treat, you know, you can't treat Marshfield town different than residents. I've actually never heard anybody at a board say that before, so I really appreciated hearing it. It is an experience that residents in this town kind of always have. So, you know, the harbor master projects really do tend to skirt the bylaws, and he kind of gets away with it.
But see, this isn't a harbor master project. This is a
bear with me.
DPW part.
I know, just bear with me, I'm getting to it, okay?
Well, we want to stay within the scope of what's in
Okay,
front of us
so
tonight.
The notice that was posted here for this work is the 2929 order of conditions from Conservation Commission.
They're saying that if they
1st,
work
2021.
beyond the right-of-way, that covers it.
When they made this new opening and they installed that fill, which you can see from my pictures, goes clearly way into the area that they call a parking lot that's not a legal parking lot, okay? There, it goes way in. That's way off the road, all right? Way off the road. And that's not even enough of a grade to be able to get in and out safely.
Now, Ms. Jordan, when you refer to the road, you're talking about the paved area, the edge of pavement? The edge of the asphalt, is that what you're referring to as the road?
Well, you keep talking about you're only concerned with
Well, I'm
what's
trying
not
to
on the
understand
road.
what you're saying right now. When you
I'm saying right
refer to,
now
when
is
you
the-
refer to that picture and you say the road, are you talking about the edge of the asphalt? If we can go back to that picture.
So I'm talking about all the fill that was put in there and spread out is in the DSA.
Virtually all of that is in the roadway layout, with the exception of an area of approximately 10 feet by 40 feet.
Which it doesn't even look like it's accurately, it doesn't look like any of it's in the DSA from your picture.
So because you have that space
Saying that from that guardrail to the bottom of the fill, you think that's beyond 20 feet?
it definitely is beyond 20 feet. It's definitely in the DSA. They added
You don't know,
fill
none of
into
us know
area.
that because we don't have an accurate plan that shows where it is.
I mean, isn't it the point when you do get work done that you're supposed to have a permit first? And not come later and say,
So
"I'm
the
sorry,
work
got
that
my
they did,
permit"?
again, you have to understand, the work that's in the right-of-way, the road layout, is not under us, it's under them. So that you're asking that the DPW get a permit from themselves to do that work, is what you're asking.
The town of Marshfield is supposed to go to the Board of
The
Public
Board
Works
of
to
Public
get-
Works, the Department of Public Works handles that permit, not us.
So why was the permit that posted for the work, why was it the 2929 posted? Why was that the permit that was posted
I don't know where it
for
was
that
posted.
work?
Where was it? Does anyone know where that was posted?
I sent you a picture of it.
Where is it?
Conservation.
On conservation.
Right, that is the Conservation Order of Conditions for, there it is, that's the Conservation Commission Order of Conditions for June 1st, 2021, when the harbor master came before Conservation, before coming to zoning, and got the whole 2-acre parking lot plan approved through Conservation with the conditions, one of being which that they would get approval from zoning. The layout, the exact layout to the opening that is there now is on that plan.
Right, but that is-
And the permit that was posted for this work is the 2929 permit.
But that's-
So how can you say that's not connected?
That is whatever they're doing, whatever they're replacing, is it a mile? I don't know how much you replaced.
We replace a lot of guardrail in town, and
I'm not
we're
talking
not
about
required to
guardrails.
pull a permit.
We-
for
they
What
were
are you,
not
are you
talking
talking
about
about the area at the bottom of the hill that we're wondering if it's 10 feet, if it's 20 feet by 40 feet? That is what we're discussing.
Well, maybe if you just let me say what I'm trying to say.
Well, I want to make sure that you're staying on point, because now you're talking about things that are outside the scope of what
Okay,
we're
so
working on.
at this site where this work was done, There was a DEP permit posted when the work was done. I have a picture of it on there, okay? That DEP permit is the 2929 Order of Conditions from Conservation Commission from June 1st of 2021 for the opening that's exactly a match to this one, and then the whole entire parking lot plan for the DSA, okay, that never passed zoning. That is the permit that was posted on this work. So that is totally incorrect, because they should have had a permit, what, from the DPW or?
No, so
I don't
what
know,
you're talking
somewhere
about is
else.
you're talking about a conservation permit that we have no say in, a DPW permit that we have no say in. What we're talking about is anything that's outside the road layout and considered in the DSA.
So okay, so let me ask it this way then, okay? If a resident changes the entrance to their property, they put
Correct.
in a new driveway,
Right.
okay? They haven't come before any board, whoever they should go before. They haven't done anything, they just put in a new driveway. And then they take a permit from, a Conservation Commission permit from another job, and they post it as the permission for having done that work. Are they gonna get, a letter of enforcement from the building commissioner?
Well, that would be
Are
up
they
to
gonna get a
conservation,
fine?
and then if the work is done, Andrew, you could answer that. If a resident
Is a
moves their
resident allowed to
driveway,
do that?
As a resident moves their driveway, is there any kind of site plan approval, building permit, or anything that goes along with that, other than potentially a Department of Public Works street opening?
Not for a non-resident, or not for a residential property, no. The difference here is it's a non-residential property.
So if a resident has a job that they do on their property that would require.
So you're talking residential or commercial?
A resident's property.
Okay.
Or a business, pick, it doesn't matter really.
Well, it does matter, because there's a difference in the
Okay, so both.
application.
Let's talk about both. If a resident and a business, okay, if they change something on their property that would require them to get zoning permission, conservation commission, public works permission, board of health permission, anybody's permission from the town of Marshfield, and they don't get it, but they do the work anyway, and then they post a permit that is not for the work done, is that legal?
So, number one, on a
Maybe I
residence.
should ask Mr. Galvin.
On a residence, Andrew, that would mean there's no permit, because you can do what you want unless the DPW is triggered. If it's in front of us for zoning, if it's a special permit, that triggers the road opening, and that becomes part of, we would address that. Beyond that, I think it's a planning issue or DPW.
All right, I'll ask the question again, because maybe if I ask it more simply, I can get a simple answer.
If you leave the residence out, which has nothing to do with what's in front of us, because this is, even though it's in the residential zone, it's not a residential use.
All right, so
So
part of my
residents don't
point-
need to get anything to open up
What is
their.
the-
Residents can do
What's the use
anything
then?
on their property without getting any kind of a permit from the town. Why were these people trying to get permits for a deck earlier?
Because they are on undersized properties, or they're too close to a lot line. Generally, you just go into Andrew and you get a building permit. You only come here if you have a pre-existing non-conforming use, a special permit.
Okay, well, I said any board. Okay, so if the people with the deck, okay, if they didn't get a building permit, if they didn't get a permit from zoning, if they needed conservation commission permit and they didn't get that, if they didn't get any permits, right? And they just decided to build their deck. And their deck isn't, and they post a permit from some other thing, from some other place.
But what you're talking about is a conservation permit, so that is a conservation issue. It's not ours.
Diane, how is your hypothetical related to?
I don't understand.
200 Joseph Drebeck Way? Can we get back to that?
So basically what this board is saying is that.
No, don't put words in our mouth. Ask us a
Okay,
question.
I'm trying to understand why you're not taking any responsibility for this violation.
What we're talking about is an area approximately 10 feet by 40 feet. Do you have a question relating to that?
So you're saying
That's what's
that
in,
Andrew's
that's what's in our
violation is
jurisdiction.
wrong?
We're talking about what's in our jurisdiction. We're not talking about things outside of our jurisdiction. 10 feet by 40 feet in our jurisdiction. What's your question?
Your 10 feet by 40 feet is in the DSA?
That's what we are assuming.
Okay.
We don't know.
So why did you don't know?
Now, based on your photograph, it looks like it isn't.
Brian, how do we go about determining that?
Absolutely, what we can do tonight is we can determine that, I think Rod, the drawing is what he anticipates having to do,
Yeah.
not what's done.
Yeah.
So what's done is much less than what is on that drawing. So what
Sure.
he's saying that is if, in order to make this work properly with percent of grade, he needs to run 40 feet from the asphalt.
Mhm.
And that's what he's showing, which looks like it's about 10 feet into the DSA. So
Yep.
the question tonight is there site plan approval needed? Is it de minimis work within that area? Is 10 by 40 feet de minimis? Or is there, is there a violation? But the thing is, we could actually, if that's, say that that's correct, we could both uphold Andrew's part of the 10 by 40 in there, and then not uphold what's in the 40 by 30 area. So we could still agree with part of what Andrew said.
Yeah, we did that recently.
We've done that before.
Yeah.
It's just that what's in front of us right now, we really don't know. And from her pictures, and I've been out there, it looks like it might be in the street layout.
Now, what is the...
So if we said to the DPW tonight, push everything back into the street layout, and then go about this properly, or we could say, we find that the 10 feet by 40 feet is a de minimis activity, and we could waive the site plan approval.
Yeah. Oh, I think I'd like to get it an absolute positive exactly where we're, because we are kind of guessing.
I don't
looking at
disagree
that.
with you.
So I'd like to get that firm. And two, what are we looking for to rectify that? What would make you guys happy? Would it make you happy having the town spend $96,000 again to
But
tear
Larry,
it all up
we
and put it
don't
back in?
have that authority. We
No,
have the authority to work in that small spot.
I totally
How
understand.
about putting up no parking signs on the entrance, since it's not a parking lot?
That'd be
Yeah.
great. Ask the DPW. They're in charge of the signs.
No, put in your letter of conditions, Brian.
A letter of conditions.
Legal, it's an illegal parking lot. Tom said when he rebutted John, so I'm rebutting Tom now, under his authority, he had the right to move that entrance. So he moved the entrance to an illegal parking lot that he knows is an illegal parking lot, to change the entrance for, under whoever's orders. Put up a no parking sign on either side of it, so no one can park in there anymore, and we'll take care of the problem.
Go ahead,
And
Tom.
leave the site untouched.
As far as DPW is concerned, it's a dredge spoils area, it's not a parking lot. The opening currently is adequate for our trucks to get in and out of there.
Okay, so put up no parking sign. And a chain. In order to use it when we're gonna use that area for dredging.
If it's not a parking lot, why did you move the entrance for people's safety? If it's not a parking lot, why is
Trucks are
people
coming
parking
in and
there?
out of there.
Well, but not currently, but maybe in the future.
Oh yeah, there's a Harbor Park parking sign there. How is that legal if it's not an
Again.
actual legal parking lot?
Signs.
Yeah, understand what Brian's saying, though. We're literally,
wanna
this
work-
board is
You're the
dealing
people
with
in front of
that.
me, that's why I'm asking.
We're the one, we want to work with what our part of the puzzle is.
And it's
These other
that
parts
small
of the puzzle,
section
you
right
gotta go
there.
to DPW, you gotta go to conservation. If you have a problem, you gotta go to the person that is the authority to do something. We don't.
Okay, well, the bottom line is the fear behind this job. With that 2929 order of conditions, which I know you didn't make, but that's what was posted here. And this opening matches up exactly with that plan. So the fear here, the bottom line is that if you don't support this violation, and if you approve this opening and regrading or adding fill or cement dust or whatever the heck it is they want to do, that triggers an approval of that whole project. So if you will go on the record, every single person here, and say, there is no approval of that whole parking lot project, which was the 2929 whatever order of conditions from conservation.
We can't
and you're not
unapprove, we
approving
cannot
that,
unapprove or approve something that's not in front of us. What is in front of us tonight is what's in that red area.
So this is the only thing.
That's what's in front of us tonight. Not the guardrail, because the guardrail's in the right of way. So you understand, what we're trying to figure out is what we can do if there's a problem here and how we can address it.
When the letter of conditions have the DPW put up no parking signs and a chain across the entrance and only open it when they have dredge trucks going in there if they ever get a water quality permit again, which they will never get, to ever dredge in there again, to ever put dredge spoils in there again.
Okay, but once again, Steve, where would that stuff, the work located in the right-of-way?
Right, come on, the road was built with a variance, the whole thing is
Understand it.
your purview. It doesn't matter how you wanna get technical over 10 feet. The roads in your, is it?
It's a matter of where we have jurisdiction or not. It's a matter of where we have
If you don't.
jurisdiction. In the right-of-way?
DPW.
The DPW. They maintain the roads in town.
So should the violation have gone?
They would have to send a violation to themselves. That's what you're asking for.
That's what I'm asking, I guess.
It is.
So, so will you go on the record and say that there's nothing about this that's gonna trigger an approval of the parking lot plan?
We are gonna address what's in front of us
You
tonight.
won't go on the record and say that?
It's not in front
Why
of us.
wouldn't you? I mean, if
Is it
it
in front
doesn't
of us
matter,
tonight?
why wouldn't you?
Is it a matter that's in front of us tonight that I can look at and say, here's some concrete evidence, this is what's in front of us, these are the particulars of this? There isn't. You don't have a matter in front of us. This is what's in front of us. This is what's advertised.
Well, I'm just gonna go on the record and say that you wouldn't. Say that you're
You
not
could go on the
approving
record and
any
do
other
whatever you
part of that
want.
2929 plan.
You can do whatever you want. That's great, because you're on the record saying that the ZBA is not enforcing a conservation item. That's wonderful. You want to go on the record and say that? Go ahead. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
for you.
Well, no, you're saying, you're going to go on the record saying that we won't enforce conservation restrictions. Is that what you're telling us?
No, that's not
Okay.
what
Brian, don't you think it's odd that the town of Marshfield put up the DEP permit for a conservation project that was approved, that was never gonna go forward for this project? Don't you think there's something like wrong with
But
that?
Tom, what jurisdiction do we have over
I don't say you have
that?
any jurisdiction over. I'm just saying, don't you think there's something wrong with that?
If you have
Why
a
would
pro-
they put that up?
If you have a problem with it, you should go right down the hall to conservation.
It's mistrust, that's what the bottom line is.
Conservation
So
didn't put
have
up
to put up
the
no parking
permit
signs and
plan.
change.
We have a question. Name and address.
Marlene Labossi is 75 Central. So you're saying you don't have any jurisdiction over this, and you can't do anything
We have
about-
jurisdiction over what we believe, we don't know, is to be 9 or 10 feet by 40 feet.
Why don't we have this area measured so that we know exactly what we're talking about? Instead of looking at, is this to scale, is it not?
Because I'm sure that the body of the town, which is the DPW that's doing the work, when it's complete, may have a drawing that says this is the as-built of an area we changed. But it's for them, not us.
Okay. If you don't have any jurisdiction, am I incorrect in saying that the next item that's coming up is Mr. DeMayo's request to go forward with his proposal?
When is
So
that
if you
on?
don't have any jurisdiction.
You're saying that's on our agenda.
If you don't have any jurisdiction.
We have jurisdiction in the DSA. No, no, don't
If
excuse
you
you.
don't have
We
any
have jurisdiction in the
How are
DSA.
you gonna grant him anything?
Because
when
we
you
have
know
jurisdiction
this
in the
is wrong?
DSA. When you come over that yellow line, that's our jurisdiction. But you can't seem to understand that.
I don't like that kind of talk, Brian. I really don't like that kind of talk.
Do you see the yellow line?
It's an insult.
It's not an insult. I'm
It is an
saying
insult.
that when you cross that yellow line,
I cross that, I go over
you're
there every
in,
day.
so then you're in the DSA, and that's where we have jurisdiction. But when you're on the other side of that in the road layout, we don't.
So, then you can't allow DeMayo to go forward with his plan.
Does he have a plan in front of us?
Nothing in front of us.
Brian, what's
It's the
our, what's our
item
next
on the
step?
agenda.
It was listed for the town of Marshfield.
Combine.
I'm sorry?
Combined.
Yeah, yeah.
Combine the two.
They did, yeah.
Where is DeMayo's, we don't have a plan from DeMayo.
You switched it, I guess. You switched it, you combined them. Originally, they came one after the other.
We have nothing.
One is the appeal,
Yeah,
and
one's
the other one is the request for
Where
site
is the
plan
thing from
approval.
Mike DeMayo?
There isn't any.
There's nothing.
It is the town of Marshfield. But we all know who it is.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Sure, Joe.
If what you want to take up tonight is a site plan approval, okay? then why don't you just grant that the violation is valid and then move on to the site plan approval phase? Why are you afraid of recognizing that this work that was done, the way it was done, was not done right? The fact that you're taking up a site plan approval for what they're asking you to do there, it's like.
Well, we combined both of them, so we're determining
Yeah, but I mean.
we're determining what the violation is, if there is any.
Well, you're gonna have to review the plan and consider all the aspects of the plan, of the site plan. So why not just say, yeah, it wasn't done so, I mean, it's, if you wouldn't be asking for a site plan approval on the same night. If, I mean, you wouldn't be talking about the violation thing if you would, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. Just grant the violation was brought up lawfully, they raised the right concerns, and then
Let's
say,
have a
okay,
conversation about the next thing.
it's a
site plan approval.
violation, okay, next item, 2315A.
Well, we combined them, so that's what we're doing.
So you
Well,
combine
I-
them so that you wouldn't have to say.
No,
the
so that we can
violation
answer,
was-
they're both on the same property.
Be nice
We
if
can
you had
answer
it on
both
the agenda
questions.
that way.
Yes, Nancy?
There'll be two decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll.
Pretty much
you're
two
gonna make a
decisions, we're just
decision on the
talking about them at the
violation,
same
yes
time.
or no.
Combine them
But
to
there's still
discuss
two
them both.
decisions.
There's two decisions.
One
Not
is
the
the
same
violation,
decision.
one is the site plan.
Correct.
So you still haven't decided if you're gonna,
We haven't closed the meeting to discuss it.
okay.
So Brian, if you're gonna give them a site plan approval, just appease us and make them put up no parking signs and a chain on the opening. So it can't be used for anything other than what Tom says it's being used for, and that's for dredge spoils. That's
Go ahead,
what's-
Dave.
How's that illegitimate, right?
I hear you. Go ahead, Dave.
Dave Carey, 34 Road. Correct me if I'm wrong, and this is, if I might address the town council as well yourself, Mr. Chair. You know, what we're voting on here is simply the entrance. The fact that it's labeled a parking lot as opposed to the dredge spoils area adds confusion to this issue, I think. But the bottom line comes down to, any parking lot development in that area is subject to another hearing on another night. Am I correct in that?
You're correct.
Thank you.
So if you
Go home, you did-
approve the violation.
Pam raised her hand.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I just want to say to follow up though, we keep trying to simplify this too much. You can call it a dredge spoils area, you can call it a parking lot, you can call it nothing. It's in the coastal wetland zone, you can't fill, okay? There's rules about filling, you gotta do it for certain reasons. You can't necessarily fill to make a ramp or an opening, should have never been made in the first place, because it's not a parking lot. So again, he's simplified it a little bit, and I want to unsimplify it. You've got to talk about the fill. And it's 20 feet, not 10 possibly. We just saw a nice woman, I give her big credit for picking up on the fact that the scale, the two-scale plan does look different to the naked eye from that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So, again, you might want to call even 20 feet de minimis, but.
Well, we're gonna, when we get into our discussion, we will review that.
Again, sorry, Diane Jordan, Bancroft Street. If it's not a legal parking lot, okay? And, then what's the purpose of changing the opening to begin with? Like, the old opening was really, because he said it was for safety, because of the crosswalks. So if it's only supposed to be used for the DPW because it's their area that they're in charge of, what difference does it make where the opening is located in reference to the crosswalks? The other opening is, that they closed, didn't need any grading. It was basically kind of level with the street. Very solid, very firm. Nobody dropped off the edge when they pulled in there. So you can't say both. You can't say he can't say we did this because it's safety and the crosswalks so you can see people when you're going in and out, and then at the same time say it's only for DPW use, only for our trucks. You can't have both.
Right, but so, again, the guardrail is in the road layout. We're addressing the area that's in the DSA.
Okay, that
If
doesn't
there is
answer
any.
my question though.
Because we
Well,
don't.
excuse me, Diane, you're saying the DPW can't say that they did something for safety reasons. Well, they can, and they did. Now, you may disagree with it. You may say the other way was safe, and what they did is not safe. That may be your opinion. But the DPW said, we did this for public safety. And again, the work that they did outside of our jurisdiction. The question is, the grading that's within our jurisdiction, does that violate the parameters that Andrew discussed? So is there a violation that would necessitate a special permit? And then do they meet the standard for the granting of a special permit? That's what's in front of us. So I understand that you disagree with the DPW's call. They didn't need to do what they did. I understand that, and I respect that you disagree with the DPW. But they did what they did in the area that's within their jurisdiction. That's not in our jurisdiction.
It doesn't make sense that
It
he's saying
it doesn't
he's
have
doing it
to.
for pedestrian safety and then saying it's for the DPW, we only use that for our trucks.
There was no study done about safety. Everybody just keeps throwing out, we did it for safety, we did it for safety. Who knows? DPW is now the expert on safety? Is that their parameter? You know, great. Hey, this all looks good. It's safe. It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody should have some kind of a study done on the safety of the damn thing. It's a nightmare.
I mean, I feel like this whole conversation is a result of the fact that work was done without a permit.
That's it.
And without a site plan. I mean, isn't that the purpose of getting a permit and a site plan?
What you're not understanding is, we're looking at that, correct, right? But the permit that you're asking about isn't under our purview, it's under the DPW's purview. So if they did something wrong, go to them and say, we want you to talk to yourself about this permit.
So, Mr. Reynolds, maybe he can answer.
Well, that's
who
not,
put
but
the
that's not for
2929
tonight, that's not for tonight's business. That's
Okay.
out of our scope, okay? So if we don't have any other questions, I'd like to close the meeting.
It's too online.
I want to talk.
Go ahead, John.
You know, I've had my hand up here for 15 minutes.
Are you talking as a member of the board or as a private
I'm talking
citizen?
as a resident and a member of the Board of Public Works. This guardrails was never discussed, a new opening, at any Board of Public Works meeting. Tom did this on his own, and it was never discussed. I've never missed a meeting. DeMayo and Bennett and Pat Brennan laid out this opening. And for you to go forward, I mean the board, and I can ask the board respectfully, when you talk, because I'm zooming it, I don't know who's talking unless it's Brian. I can understand, I can figure out it's Brian. But if anybody else talks, I don't know who's talking. So if you said your name, that would be nice. This drawing is not to scale. So we don't really know what's in the DSA, what's out of the DSA. So normally you'd have a site plan by an engineer. So let's do it right. Instead of begging for forgiveness, we should have left it alone. But now we have an opening that's never discussed. I don't care what Tom says. I never missed a meeting. I never heard a word about this. Nothing. We discussed a contract. That's it. The contract is even addressed to Jimmy Kent. And I spoke to Jimmy Kent 3 times, and he told me DeMayo and Brennan laid out that opening. He even told Tom, as I asked him, he said, I told Tom that they told me what to do. But that's all done in February. We do it now and ask forgiveness. So let's get a drawing that's certified by an engineer with the right measures on it and what we're gonna do with this recycled asphalt. I'm looking at it 40 by 40, whatever it is. I don't even know how high it is. Is this just a block that's...
Well, we don't know what this,
10 inches high?
John, we don't know if it represents what's on the ground or what's anticipated.
You can't vote on it then, because this is not, this thing is it's not to scale.
I understand that.
We don't know what this, we really don't know what you're doing here. Why don't you table the whole damn thing and have another meeting, and then we can have it certified, have a surveyor down there, have them figure out how high this stuff is, what it's gonna take, because you're not gonna get away with this little 40 by 40. This thing is the difference of 3 feet elevations. Come on, you know that. You've been down there, Brian.
I know.
For Christ's
I've
sake,
been down there
you know,
several times.
You're not gonna vote on something that's from a not to scale. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, but long story short, you've been going back and forth with the audience, which is fine, but I've had my hand up for 10 minutes to try to answer some of the questions here, and you're letting the audience just speak out, and the poor, unwashed sit here zooming, which I'll never do again. I'll come to that meeting.
All
I'm
right.
just sitting here listening to Tom say it was discussed. It wasn't discussed. Show me on the minutes where it's discussed, because it wasn't. We discussed the contract in the story.
We appreciate your time, John.
I've had enough.
Thank you. Anastasia?
Hi, Anastasia Powers, 346 Elm Street. So the item number 23-15A is seeking approval of installation and removal in the movement of the guardrails, which I guess you can't approve because it's outside your jurisdiction. It doesn't mention anything about fill, so I don't think that you can vote on that item.
The item is to cover site plan approval.
I thought it was to install and move the guardrails. That's how I read it. It doesn't mention anything about fill.
Site plan approval per 305-1202. It's 2315. All right, so I think we're ready to close.
I do have one more question. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but if it's not your jurisdiction, why are they here asking for site plan approval from you?
Because the piece that is beyond the yellow line, black line, is in our jurisdiction. The question is, if they did disturb that area, how are we gonna handle that? And that's what we're here to decide.
But this is talking about installing and replacing guardrails.
Listen, they can write whatever they want in the application. It's up to us to determine
It's
what.
on the agenda.
Right, but that's the application. We are the board, we decide what is to be addressed.
There's no
You want to cover all your bases, that's what most people do.
It
Some
says
people
nothing
apply
about
with
the
a special
fill.
permit, a variance, and site plan, because they don't know which one's going to stand moot.
Well, if guardrails is not your jurisdiction, and there's nothing on here about fill,
But
you
the
can't vote
guardrails
on
would be
this.
in our jurisdiction if this was a special permit.
I think the guardrail is in there just kind of explaining what
They're
triggered this whole
explaining what
scenario.
triggered everything. They're explaining what
The
was,
site-
they're appealing.
Okay, but it
Brian,
was
the
already
request for
done.
site plan approval is in there in case the board upholds the violation and
Correct.
requires site plan approval. In that case, everything can get done tonight.
Right.
If you overturn the decision, then the site plan approval is moot. You don't need it.
Mr. Chairman, may I say that if there's something about the project that would create a violation of the town's laws, including the zoning laws, including filling in a coastal wetland, then you can't grant it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move that we close 2314 and 2315. 2315 and 2315A, Town of Marshfield, 200 Joseph Drybeek Way. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Mark Cohen, aye.
All right, I'm ready to discuss this. So, Andrew, we have that other plan too, right? So, Bob, we could, if we decided to approve this, based and said that if there is work within the DSA, and Tom had agreed, we could say they have to push it back to the line, or we could say if it crosses the line to be feathered to make the ramp work, we could decide it's either can be done or it's de minimis and they waive the site plan approval? Is there other options?
No, I think that's fairly accurate. I mean, I've kept my mouth shut the entire time, listening to a discussion for an hour and a half that was mostly about what this isn't.
I know.
The discussion here has been so clearly out of bounds.
I'm just trying to be nice to these people.
Just so you know, the Coastal Wetlands District doesn't mention you can have a street and a roadway in it. So does that mean you can't have a street and a roadway? No. It doesn't mention parking lots, accessory or principal parking lots. Does that mean you can't have it in the Coastal Wetlands District? No, because they're implicitly part of the permitted uses or uses that are allowed by special permit. Okay. I'm not speaking about whether that's a parking lot or a DSA area. Historically, that has been a DSA area, and people have been parking there for as long as I can remember. Now, I heard Ms. Keith talking about maybe I'm 100% right about zoning relating to the use, and could be 180% right, but she then goes on and tells you I'm wrong, and I'm usually wrong on everything else. There's just dizzying logic. She's not a lawyer. She doesn't understand how this works. She tries hard. I respect many times she is right. And I tell her when she's right. I tell her when she's wrong. We don't agree on everything. The reality is you're here to discuss that small area outside the layout of the roadway, and that's it, and that's your site plan approval authority. It seems like a small area. It's up to the board to quantify that, whether it's a minimal area. It's up to you to decide whether it requires site plan approval or not. You can waive it if it's a minimal area. That's completely up to you. But clearly the DPW has authority to do the work that it did within the layout of the roadway. And so it's clear the layout of the roadway is not just the area where there is pavement, which I think Mr. Sullivan was trying to explain to some of the audience. The layout of the roadway is the entire 60-foot layout. And everything to the right, to me, looks like it's part of a DSA area, which has existed for many, many years. I don't know how many years they've been dredging now, probably pre-existing some of our zoning regulations. So in any event, your job is to determine whether Andrew is right or wrong and whether this work, in whole or in part, required site plan approval. And as far as I'm concerned, my recommendation, which were also misstated by another speaker, were contained on page 10 of the memo. Determine the origin and location of the work. I indicated it was my opinion as town council that the work within the layout of the street is not regulated by zoning. So you can choose to agree or disagree with that. You have to determine whether the work that entered into the town-owned property outside the layout of the street and what that was. You have to determine whether that requires site plan approval. You have to determine if the filling activities are the type of dumping, filling, excavating, or transfer of materials that's prohibited in the coastal wetlands district, or whether that is associated with the roadway or the entrance to the DSA area, which exists. The statement that was cherry-picked out of the 17-page memo that I wrote was one sentence, and I was really trying to explain that, read literally, you couldn't put sand on the roadway or put salt on the roadway because that would probably be some type of a filling, and that's completely nonsensical. I think the DPW has the absolute implicit authority to do whatever they need to do to maintain the roadway, maintain access to the DSA, which has existed for years. If this is where they choose to put it, I think it's up to them to decide, and you to decide whether that required site plan approval. You can't conflate zoning bylaws with conservation rules and regulations. I said it repeatedly. If there's a wetlands issue here, contact the Conservation Commission, they'll determine that. So I think you have to finally determine whether you're going to waive site plan approval, finding that the work here is minor outside the layout of the roadway.
So we can also we can agree with Andrew and disagree with them both, right?
You could agree in part.
Yeah, partially.
And disagree in part with Andrew. And I don't know that Andrew took into account the fact that zoning doesn't regulate the uses within the layout of the roadway. It's apparent to me that it did not. But I think as Andrew is likely correct outside the layout of the roadway, that this type of work probably would have required site plan approval, and it requires your determination as to whether it involved some type of illegal filling in the coastal wetlands district. But, technically, that's not the issue that's in front of you. That's not what Andrew concluded and wrote the town up or the DPW up over. All he said was it was his opinion that it required site plan approval. So you should answer the narrow question in front of you as to whether that small amount of work outside the layout of the roadway is going to require site plan approval, and whether what you've shown here is adequate. I mean, the board has, on many occasions, weighed the formality of a certified plan where it didn't seem to make sense. I mean, I've seen it happen dozens and dozens of times.
I'm okay with that on this.
So you have to decide from there.
All right, so we could actually agree with Andrew on the site plan part, and then.
I think you should make it really clear in what respect you agree with him and what respect you don't agree with him, so that there's clarity going forward for anybody as to what you think he was right on and what he was wrong on, if you believe that was the case.
So if we assume that there is some potential work that was done out of the right-of-way, we can agree with him on that. And then as far as the work done in the right-of-way, we can disagree with him on that.
You could if you wanted to.
Okay. All right, you guys wanna, how does everyone feel about this?
Well, I'd personally like to know exactly what we're dealing with here. Is it gonna be 10 feet by 40 feet, 20 feet by 40 feet? We don't know. That's my view on it. If you guys feel differently, that's.
So you don't think that you can decide tonight whether you wanna waive or say they need site plan approval based on the evidence that we've been given?
Yeah, because if they push it back, if it's possible to push back, which doesn't appear to me that it would be possible, it's pretty steep grade. And if you look at where the old entrance was, that was pre-existing here, it appears that ramp, if you will, for lack of a better description, goes considerably more into that dredge spoil area than what they're showing.
I mean, I think her pictures show the best view.
It really is just even.
You're not allowed to speak when we're closed.
That was the existing,
That
correct?
to me shows that it's probably wholly within the right-of-way, but.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's all in the right-of-way, but.
But again,
I think it's gonna take a little bit beyond that to get there, so what we could say is, we could ask for, we could say that we, agree that, with Andrew, that there might have been some work out of the right-of-way, but we agree that any work done in the right-of-way was okay and out of our jurisdiction for
Yes.
site plan approval. And then we could waive the site plan approval, as this is de minimis work. I mean, they're saying how you guys feel. So
Well,
you're saying that you need a definitive plan.
Yeah, I would
figure
like
this
to
out.
see where it's gonna go, because if you go back to that photo, it's a pretty steep grade. I mean, I drove
on
it
it
today,
several
it is a steep grade, there's no, I mean, that's not adequate. And I'd like to know how far it's gotta be, there's gotta be a formula to deciding how far out
Larry,
that needs to go
in
for
your
a grade.
best estimate, what's the drop-off from the edge of the asphalt down to where it's level?
You ask me,
Yeah.
it's a good drop. I mean, I'm not an engineer, I'm not out there surveying it, it's a
You're a
good.
human. I mean,
Yeah, when I
5
drove,
feet.
I'm driving.
3 feet?
Yeah, when I went over it, just today, hours ago, it's a steep drop off. I'm driving a small
it's been torn
SUV and the
up in
bottom
these-
of it
right.
virtually gets it. And
they
the
still-
the person,
200-foot contour gradient at that location.
Okay, so it's 2 feet. So the question is, can Tom take, in a 40-foot stretch, can he make 2 feet of grade work?
can you show us that on a plan? For us to
Yeah, but I'm
continue
just
this and
saying,
get
I
it
mean,
to show
I
on a
understand
plan.
what that is, but
If he grades it within the roadway layout, we don't
And
need to do anything.
it doesn't need to be here for us, correct.
but like Bob said too, if we say that if there's some work that's beyond that, that's not much,
Yeah.
minimal,
Yeah.
de minimis, whatever you wanna call
Yeah.
it, then that's okay too.
But if they also
We
do the
can
numbers
waive
and
the
they
site-
say, well, you know what, we're doing the numbers here, and
Certainly
we're
not gonna
actually.
come 70 feet in there.
No, I'm not saying 70, but
I
could
think
it be
this
20? I don't
plan,
know.
I never had it explained to me, but the 40 by 40 to me, because they're measuring off the thing, is, I think this is what's anticipated, not
Yeah.
what's there.
Yeah.
This is what they need, so they're basically asking for 10 feet by 40 feet. They might have to go into the DSA.
10 feet by 40 feet.
Yes.
But as this guy just went like that, I'm in the
If
same
they-
thing.
if they
'Cause
go
I don't
in-
know where that yellow line to the end of the red line is, that goes into the DSA. I don't know what that is. There's not even a marking up there anywhere that shows what it is.
That's
Well,
the
actually, it
road
does,
layout.
40 feet. Yep, no, you do.
It's 40 by
It does, 40. But I mean, there's nothing that's showing. It's showing 40 feet, but it's, what's the distance, again, with that yellow line?
Looks like it's about 30 feet, but.
I would be.
Is
I'd-
that accurate?
I'd
About,
be-
yeah,
I'd be
exactly,
comfortable.
exactly, you
Well,
know.
we don't know, because this is superimposed
I
on
mean,
Google
is the
Earth.
town, Andrew, go to the other plan so we
But
can
well,
look at it.
at some point, a surveyor's gonna be out there and is gonna have to do an as-built. I would be comfortable saying they can grade no more than 10 feet into the DSA.
And consider that a de minimis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And again, because as we're looking at this, that's superimposed on Google
Yeah.
Earth, who knows?
Now, a second question is, with all the conversation, some of that fill that's over that made the existing ramp before, would it be an issue using that to make
That's
that?
what I'm saying. I don't know if they move it around within the site.
Yeah, move.
Transferring of earth in the coastal wetlands district is prohibited.
So they're not allowed to even bulldoze in there?
Unless it's issued by special permit by the board and a by right activity.
So, in calling that a minor modification of it, we would also have to prove them moving. So that would actually make it so nothing else was imported. You'd be using fill that was on the site to create the ramp, if you will.
What we're saying is that
Yeah.
they can build the ramp, and if they have to push 10 feet into the DSA, we're
Mhm.
considering that minor.
With
And
existing
instead,
site,
we-
with existing site material.
Yeah, exactly, yep, okay.
So they're not importing.
How do you feel, Jason?
I mean, that makes the most sense to me.
I'm sorry?
That makes the most sense to me.
Yep.
Eventually, it's gonna get.
I don't like the drawings. The first one that wasn't submitted, that was submitted with, before, correct? This one here is what they submitted with this appeal, right?
Yeah.
And according to their own, they've already violated by going over the yellow line in their own drawing.
Whoa.
Well, that's what they're
This-
proposing.
This is the proposed
This is
drawing.
proposal.
What they're in, if you look at her drawings, and if you've been down there, I don't think they're outside the line yet. So I think what they're asking is they need to do this in order to make the percent of grade work
So we could set the limit.
at 10 feet.
Yeah, because I agree with what Brian's saying, what it appears to that it proposed that an idea, he thinks that's what, I agree with all that, but if we set a limit, as discussed, that
Then that's
would
it.
allow you to go X, if you need to go, and there's,
If they have to come back,
Gotta
they
go
have to come
more
back.
than
yeah,
that, they
you're
gotta
not
come back.
allowed.
Right. So Bob, would that be waiving site plan approval if we find it de minimis?
If you find it's minor, you have the authority to waive site plan approval.
But finding it,
Put conditions on
doing that, can you put a limit on it, say we will find it acceptable or allowed within 10 feet?
Well, we find the de minimis activity of 10 feet in, 10 feet by 40 feet into the,
It's up to the board how you define minimal.
okay.
If the work is minimal, the board has the authority to waive site plan approval. You have the authority to require site plan approval. You could do either one. It's your choice.
I think we need site plan approval. I think we need a certified drawing.
One of the things the
So
board's
we're-
done in the past is required somebody to prepare one after the fact.
After it's built.
And as,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
as built.
So we could do site plan approval and allow 10 feet into the DSA and have an as-built that shows as such.
That would probably be within the scope of your authority.
All right. Let's wait for Brian to come back. I mean, are you okay with that, Larry, or you want
Yeah,
something
that,
different?
that sounds reasonable to me, but now, is it gonna be also with that? It'd be up to the DPW to be to be on their toes and say that's gonna be, if you're not gonna make it in the 10-foot that we've discussed, then it needs to stop. When the town engineer's out there laying it out, it needs to stop.
If it doesn't
then you
work,
need
they'll have to come
If
back
it
to
doesn't
us.
work, you
Yeah.
gotta come back.
We're
Because
making a
this audience
decision.
is gonna be out of their mind if you go, if
But we're
we
making a
approve 10 feet
decision,
and it
and
ends
they
up
have
being
to,
12.
they have to comply
Yep.
with our decision.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know they're gonna be down there with tape measures. He's gonna be there, so. And she'll be there, and she'll be there, and he'll be
They
there.
should be there, that's good. Wonderful
Yeah.
to hear.
No.
But they're gonna have to
no.
file an as-built. They're
Closed.
gonna have to file an as-built. That's gonna be part of it.
What?
Hearing is closed.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Larry's the one breaking the rules.
Sorry. Been a long night.
So how about that storm, huh? Killer.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
All right, we're gonna have you eloquently
What?
you're gonna get to eloquently deliver this. What we've decided, if you're in agreement, is that we'll uphold part of Andrew's thing. We have to be, Bob said we have to be definite about what we're upholding, that the site plan approval was required, but that the work in the right-of-way we'll say that was, we don't agree with that. That wasn't a violation. But the work that may have potentially been in right away, I mean, in the law.
The way you've just stated it, you're contemplating a motion to uphold in part and deny in part
Yes.
the appeal. And you're upholding the appeal insofar as it related to the work within the layout of the roadway, and you're denying the appeal as it relates to the work outside of the layout of the roadway. And then you,
So,
Right.
we can do that on the appeal, right?
that's how you dispense with the appeal, and then you have to, because you're granting you're upholding the building inspectors or building
I can
commissioner's
adopt
determination.
your language.
Adopt my language, and that's the first part of what you have to do, then you have a
We'll
second.
address that first. So I'm adopting Bob's language. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Mark Wall, and aye.
Okay, now you have to address the issue of site plan approval as it relates to the work outside the layout of the roadway. And your choices are to require site plan approval, to waive site plan approval, or to do some combination of the both of them and put some conditions.
So site plan approval is in front of us tonight.
You are.
So
And
we
the,
can-
the applicant has come forward with a plan.
Plan.
That I've heard the board say that is not drawn to scale, and I think that's pretty apparent when you look at it.
But we can define that as 10 feet by 40 feet.
Well, you
outside
could,
the
you
road
could
layout.
say what you construe as to be minimal.
Right. Okay.
And then decide whether you find that the work there is minimal or not, and whether you're gonna require a formal site plan or require them to come up on on another day with a plan that shows exactly how much fill was placed in outside.
So are we okay
Yeah,
with the
I-
10
I
feet by
move-
40 feet?
I move that we find that the applicant meets the requirements for the granting of a special permit inasmuch as
Site plan approval.
the site plan approval inasmuch as the work involves an area no greater than 10 feet by 40 feet on the plan presented that is on the DSA and outside of the roadway layout, involving material, existing on-site material.
Andrew, can you bring up the site plan approval agreement?
Probably say 40 width, right north to south.
Oh, yeah, 40 with,
40 by 10.
yeah,
40 feet by 10 feet.
thank you.
So we all agree with the site plan approval, 1 through Is it 10, Andrew? Yeah. All right, second?
Second.
I second. Yes. All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Go Hensley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Mark Wall and I.
Is that it? Nancy, do we have anything else left?
I believe that's it.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Larry Keane, aye.
Go Hensley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Mark Wall and I.
Thank you.